Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Austin Clark here with the Multiply You podcast. I'm very excited to have a fantastic guest on that everyone really needs to listen to today. With the pandemic, and even before then, things have just been flipped upside down as it relates to talent acquisition, retention. And so Rory is here today as an expert in her space on many different things, but specifically talent acquisition, helping companies find the right candidates, helping them think through perhaps even what open seats at the table are costing you year over year, and different sorts of things like that. And so I'm really excited to be able to pick her brain. Before I do, though, this episode, as they all are, it's brought to you by my company, Moxie Pest Control. We're buying, and we have been doing acquisitions for the last, probably 5 or 6 years or so now. And it's been fantastic. And so if you are a pest control operator and are wondering about what the next chapter of your life looks like, perhaps after selling or divesting of your company, I'd be happy to fill in some of the blanks. And if nothing comes of it, that's fine too. But you could have more information going into the future about what that may look like. Multiples are at an all-time high right now. And we're looking for companies that are reputable, do great service, 5+ trucks on the road. Would really welcome those conversations. You can call or text me on my cell. It's 480-254-9730. Or you can email me directly at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. Rory Perry, she's here with us today. She is the managing partner of her executive recruiting firm, Garvey Perry Inc. The thing that I learned and in talking with her, but she specifically focuses on the service industry. And so I think that she will have some perspectives that will really resonate with, she's not necessarily recruiting for law firms or, medical doctors or those sorts of things. And so she will speak our language and help us to be able to make some sense of what's been going on the last couple of years or so. So Rory, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Wonderful. You've been doing this very successfully for nearly 2 decades or so. And so first, maybe tell us a little bit about some of your experience. I don't want to say and why you're qualified to speak to us about some of these things, but give us a little bit of your story. Tell us a little bit about your background.
So historically, my background was in the medical field, and I was in that field for over 20 years. The role that I left to enter into this world was director of rehabilitation. And the reason that we started to focus on the service industry is because my husband's career was really in depth in the service industry, and he had a lot of knowledge in that industry. And so we just combined our forces to focus, because I think when you are in a vertical consistently and having those conversations, it allows you to get a really far reach on both the candidate side and the client side, and then be able to support both sides the most effectively. So keeping in that niche really helps us to keep abreast of what's going on both sides of the platform.
So Rory, help us make sense of what's gone on since the pandemic, if you will. I mean, we had the pandemic, many people went remote. Now people are being pulled back into the office for better or for worse. We had quiet quitting happening for a while. Like I mentioned to you earlier before we went on, I saw a headline that said quiet hiring. I still don't know what that means. I'll look it up when we get off.
I'm not sure if I know that one.
Yeah, but what has gone on? I mean, the last couple of years have been extremely disruptive, and not all in a negative way. Some with a positive outlook. But help us to make sense of some of the last couple of years from your perspective as a recruiter.
It's interesting. What we've seen is I'm really busy. Companies are hiring like crazy, but what they're finding is they're not having the reach that they would like to have to attract the candidates that they want for their openings. And some of the reason that they have openings, I can give you a client example. I have a client that had a fairly large sales team, but when COVID hit, because they were serving clients like hotels and restaurants, they had to lay off some of their sales team. And then those folks went and found other things to earn their income. And now they're rebuilding their sales team. Right. And they've got a lot of business now that things are rolling and people are spending money and they need the services. And so they're trying to rebuild, and they weren't able to bring back the same folks that were on the team. And so now they're having to go out and seek additional talent. And so having a partner in that is just helping them to focus on their day-to-day business and be able to bring people to the table and rebuild a little bit. So that's one component, that rebuilding because of the loss during COVID. The other component is, as you mentioned, remote work. So when I'm reaching out to candidates today, one of the first questions, if I don't mention it off the bat, is this a remote position? But what I'm finding from my clients is people who are in the services industry particularly, they need someone that's there and integrated into what's going on, whether it's an HR person, an account manager, operations manager. They don't want people that are removed, because as you know, when you're in the room with somebody, there's a different energy. And what I'm seeing is, yeah, there might be some flexibility where you might work from home a day here, but we want people on site.
How is that conversation between your prospects, if you will, or those, the talent and employee? How is that going? I mean, is it reasonable, or people, or are we at a stalemate?
No, I think it's pretty reasonable. Now, there are some folks that are, nope, I only want remote, and they have their reasons behind that. And what that just says to me, like anything else, is that role is just not for them. Because this requires someone with a physical presence and energy in the day-to-day operations, and that's what's the right fit. So when I'm looking for candidates for clients, it's all about the right fit. Someone who's seeking a 100% remote position just isn't the right fit. So it's like anything else, when you're going out there and having those conversations, it's okay. That person's just not the right fit. We move on to the people who are saying, yeah, I'm open to that. And I want that. And I want that type of interaction, right? Because that's going to be closer to the right fit. So I wouldn't say that it's really necessarily a hindrance. It's just like, prior to COVID, there are certain things people want in certain roles and certain things they don't. Finding the right person is what I'm out there to do, and bring them to the table and let those clients, make that final decision about, yeah, this person is going to be a great fit for us.
Earlier you talked about options and companies hiring like crazy, almost like never before, shortly after the pandemic. And now we may be going into something a little bit different with just mass layoffs happening at tech companies, which is usually where it starts, and perhaps a recession looming or not. I don't know. I don't have can't see the future. Don't have a crystal ball, but It appears that it may be going that way. Candidates, talent, they have lots of options. Do they still have lots of options today? Is that tide turning where you're seeing companies aren't hiring quite as much, or what does that look like?
I think companies are hiring. I'm not seeing, in the industries I'm serving, I'm not seeing layoffs, right? One of the things about the services industry is the lawn needs to get mowed. We need
whether there's a recession or not.
Right. And so they tend to be a little more recession proof, right? But I think it's allowing employers to be selective in their hiring and to really make sure that they have the good fit. So I would say the biggest impact right now, currently, again, without being clairvoyant, is that both on the company side and the candidate side, people are being more selective, right? About where they're going, and or for the candidates, if they're going to make a move. they want to feel secure about that role and about that company. So people are doing their due diligence to make sure when they're going to entertain an opportunity that it's going to be a stable opportunity.
So we talked a little bit before about kind of your ideal client. So you're not necessarily looking, more established or larger companies that have an entire HR department and a talent acquisition arm or department. That's not, I mean, you certainly can provide value and help there, but you're providing tons of value to, from my perspective, and I think the data backs it up, to much more of the market. I mean, most of the business that happens out there day in, day out is from small businesses. Maybe under the $1 million mark or $3 million mark or whatever it may be, where there's a handful of key people that are wearing a lot of different hats, but that may not have an established talent acquisition department or even person. And so tell us a little bit more about that process and how you serve clients and integrate into the company a little bit, and just what that looks like.
Yeah, so one of the things that my firm is doing for that type of clientele that doesn't have a talent acquisition team in place is we're providing guidance on the overall process of how to attract talent and then how to go through the process of hiring. So we provide support on everything from making sure they have a quality job description that gives a clear idea to potential candidates about what the job entails, because that's going to help draw people in. We're talking with them about, what are the perks that you're offering that draws someone to your company beyond the salary, right? If it was apples to apples on the salary side, why would I come and work for you? Provoking those types of thoughts, discussing with them, what is your process for hiring? Who will this person be interviewing with? Are you going to be doing Zoom interviews, in-person interviews? What are the length of the interviews? What types of questions are you asking, right? Besides, when we vet someone internally here, we're having conversations, but also when you're ready to meet with this person, tell me about your ideal candidate, right? And so, things that we help with is, yes, we can say, okay, these are the things I'm looking for, right? But there's a culture side of the company. Is your company fast-paced? Is your company low-key? Is it high energy? What are the things that make people tick, that are there, that's going to be a good fit for someone who's looking for an opportunity? And we really get into the weeds with them about what they need and walk them through step by step how to get this done, how to write an offer letter if they haven't, if this is new for them. We want to have a proper offer letter to the candidate, and it needs to include all the facets of the expectations, from start date to all of the benefits to what the salary looks like, the hour expectations. Is there a 24-hour availability depending on the industry, right? Is that something that's an expectation? Are there weekends expected? Do we have standard hours? Will I be getting a company car? Will I be using my car? What does that look like? What's the expectation there? Making sure that they understand all the facets that someone's going to need to know, so that everybody's on the same page when they bring someone in. And we try to really minimize any surprises so that, again, they get that person in place and there's some longevity there and they feel a part of the team. So walking them through the step by step from the job description to the offer letter, right? And getting them talking about this role and why it would be a great move for somebody. And then we also have them looking at, I have conversations where I say, okay, start with the unicorn. Tell me the unicorn that you want for this job. Now tell me where you're willing to acquiesce. For example, if you were hiring someone, Austin, and you said to me, I need an operations manager, I want them to have, 5 years of experience in pest control, and I want them to have a bachelor's degree, and I want them to have this, right? So we go through all these things that would be the unicorn, if you will. Then I say, okay, Austin, okay, what if they don't have a bachelor's degree, but they have this? Is that something you would consider? Because that helps us cast a wider net and also
Sure.
gets my clients thinking about, okay, if they were this, because they get a little bit of tunnel vision about who should be in the role. Sort of expanding that mindset to say yes, I think those things are all good, but what if I brought you this? Right? And then we start having conversations with people and talking about, here's why I think this person might be a good fit. And that helps them to kind of move throughout that process, really, and then to get more efficient in hiring so that as they are achieving their growth objectives and more positions become available within their companies, they feel even more comfortable bringing people in because they have a process and a partner.
And, we're a company that has a department with a handful of people in it that does talent acquisition. But I remember, and it wasn't very long ago when we didn't, and I was doing a lot of it and other things and not doing it very well. And I can speak to the fact that having a defined process really helps you not just screen candidates, but allows you time with them to understand a little bit more about what makes them tick and who they are. And if you but if you have one process for one candidate and another for another candidate and another for another candidate, then you don't really have a systematized process to be able to really properly judge, if you will, or get a feel for them in the same sort of way.
Right.
And so that is humongous to be able to pencil that out and create the system of what does your screening process look like? What does your interview process look like? How many interviews do you have? When you have one or two or three, is one a phone interview and one a Zoom and one an in-person? What are you asking? Like what are you looking to get to after each interview or understand or learn? Do you do reference checks or not? I hope that everyone does them. You will learn so much about your candidates. Much about your candidates. Maybe the most important thing about your candidates doesn't really come from them or how they interview. It comes from their previous employers.
Understanding.
Call.
Yeah, well, and I do reference checks often for clients. I will perform those, and then I create a summary of those calls of who this person was, how this candidate was, what working relationship they had, and then what this individual had to say and what types of questions that I asked the reference. One thing that employers need to keep in mind is it's pretty unlikely that I'm going to give you someone that I don't feel pretty confident is going to say good things about me. But what does that look like? Right? There's more to it. You got to listen between the lines a little bit. And I think, that you touched on the process, but I think the key word there too is consistency in the process. Every time you go to hire someone, this is what it looks like. And if that's not working for you, then what are we tweaking in that process so that, it's a rinse and repeat situation, and that you have the confidence of what the opportunity is that you can present to viable candidates as well.
So let me ask you this then, Rory, and I know you can't give necessarily a definitive answer, but as you are conducting copious amounts of interviews and screening and reviewing and conversations and all of it, what is it now more than ever you're finding that there's like many questions here. What are you finding that talent wants? Are there common themes? And then also, what are the best of the best firms, whether it's in pest or home service or otherwise, what are they doing and how are they pivoting or adjusting to attract the best talent that they can?
Well, there's a couple of things. Repeat your first question, Austin, because I want to address that first.
Okay, first question was, to sum it down, what do candidates want? What is the workforce wanting right now?
There's a couple of things. One thing that people want is work-life balance. They want flexibility. And what that means to one person and what it means to another person can be different. But on the whole, what it means is, if I have a sick child or a doctor's appointment, I don't want to feel like I'm going to lose my job because I have a family or a personal life. Okay. So when people say flexibility, that's typically what they mean. The other thing that people want is they want the ability to grow in their career. So companies that offer certifications, companies that offer continuing education, companies that offer, that are saying we promote from within, right? We're building our team from within. So you may come in, let's say, as a person that applies the treatments in pest control, but we have, 3 branch managers that were technicians because we're lifting people up within our company. That makes people want to come to your company and stay with your company because they can advance their career and better themselves, better for their families. Okay. That's something that people really look for. So they want to be able to grow. One of the reasons people job hop is because they feel stuck, that there's no advantage where they are. They cannot grow. That, I would say, is the number one thing that gets people job hopping. And then companies don't want that person because, they job hop. Well, they're trying to advance. Are you offering advancement? This is somebody that wants to advance. And that's not 100% of the situation. Sometimes you have people that are just sort of flaky and they job hop. But you can tell when you speak to someone the difference. And so I'm working with clients to make sure that they're taking a real look at the candidates that are coming to the table and having those conversations. Do you hire from within to those larger positions? Because that's really huge.
That is really helpful, and thank you. And then the second piece of that question is, and maybe it's just a different side of the same coin, but what are the best firms out there doing, either to attract or recruit away or retain talent? What's gone on the last couple of years where firms and companies have had to adjust to maybe be more of those things that the workforce wants?
So the big term would be open-minded, right? And that I kind of spoke earlier about tunnel vision. So people, when they're hiring, can kind of get stuck a little bit thinking that skills are not transferable. So I will have a client and they'll say, well, no, I only want someone from pest control. That's it. I don't want, if they're not from that industry, I don't want them. Now, I'm not going to bring someone who's been in the arts or film and say they can be in pest control, but maybe they've been, in the janitorial industry, or maybe they've been in the landscaping industry. It's a service-oriented industry and the operational component is similar. So they have a lot of those foundational skills. So somebody, especially the leaders, right? They can come over and they can say, I can transfer these skills to your company and here's how I can help you. And there's a thing, to think about where, they're coming into your culture and you want them to be able to be a component of that, but also having that thought process of how can this person culture add? What do they bring that I currently do not have? And that's what helps grow, right? Because how do we grow? Change. If you do everything the same, always the same, typically there's no growth. And what do companies want on the whole? They want to grow. They want to increase revenue. They want to grow their staff. They want to grow their leadership. And so I think open-mindedness in the sense of, if I bring someone to the table, what can they help us with? How can they help us grow? Right? Whether it's someone on the boots on the ground or someone in leadership.
This has been amazing. As we kind of, Rory, start to wind this down over the next few minutes, I'd like to ask you 2 final things. But the first is, what, from your perspective and experience, what is your outlook in this regard of what we've been talking about with talent acquisition, employers being open-minded? What is your outlook on 2023 here as we're sitting here at the beginning of it? And then if people want to continue the conversation, what's the best way for them to contact you? Is it LinkedIn or email, or how do they get in contact with you and your firm?
Well, the first, for your first question, what I would say for 2023 is, I think it's going to be amazing. I think that, I would go out on a limb and say we're going to continue to see growth in companies. I believe that. There's always things in other industries that are going on. And I feel like the stuff we hear about is always tends to be the negative, right? But there's a lot of companies that are growing. And that's where I want to put my focus. And so I feel like it's going to be a huge year. I know I'm going to have my best year yet in 23. And I hope that for all of my clients as well, and that they keep growing. And that's my opinion on that. In terms of getting in touch with me, email, LinkedIn, phone, I'm available on all of those. Any type of communication is fine with me, whatever's most comfortable for the person that's reaching out. I'm readily available on LinkedIn. You can message me anytime. You can email me. My email's on my LinkedIn profile. I don't know if you want me to give you that now, or if you want to give them that.
We'll put that in all the detail, and
that's
then we'll
fine.
point
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Well, Rory, this again has been amazing. Thank you so much. Everyone, you heard it here from Rory firsthand. Check her out on LinkedIn. All of her contact info is there. Wonderful firm, doing great things. You've heard it. She's going to have her best year, and all of us will have our best year with a lot of her assistants too. So thank you for tuning in. These drop every Thursday, and until then, create a great day.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.